Rolling. So we've got some folks on the phone. We're broadcasting through GoToMeeting. Folks in the GoToMeeting, if I forget to switch screens and everything, can you yell at me in the chat, because I'm sure I'm going to forget right now, or I'm sure I'm going to forget because I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between live demos and also some slides. So just a bit about who I am. I'm Dan McWeeney. I'm a senior computer scientist with Adobe Systems. I work on AEM. Very specifically, I work on the social communities components inside AEM. So AEM is obviously a web content management system, and it has a set of components in it that help you build websites that are also engaging from a user-generated content perspective. So I'll walk through some of the components. I'll do some demos of stuff. There's one big caveat to basically everything I'm going to show you right now. This is non-released code. This is part of what will be a drop that's called FP4, which will be released somewhere in June. So what I'm showing you is not necessarily the reality that we will ship, but it is hopefully very, very close to that reality. So if you have a customer that's betting on something I show you here, please, please, please reach out to Adobe Sales and get in touch with the product management team for this to make sure that that is definitely going to land in the FP. So that is the only disclaimer that I will give, and I'll basically start running through stuff. So how many folks are like more technical versus like people that do like authoring, UX, UI work? So just like a quick show of hands. Like, do we have like Java developers? So who's like developer? Okay. So okay, a little more technical than I was expecting, but that's fine. So I'll run through the demo quickly and then talk through some of the architectural challenges that we have, we think we've addressed in some of the social communities components. So first thing, what is social communities? Like I said, this is a non-exhaustive list of the various components that we provide. So blogs, calendars, analytic plugins, notification scoring, badging, commenting systems, forums, Q&As, like blah, 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 blah. There's all these things. This is a more authoritative, a more exhaustive list of all of the various pieces that actually make up social communities. So there's a lot. The big bubble red numbers are what feature pack these things are landing in, or a feature pack that had or a feature that has a major revision in said feature pack. So you can see here we've been rolling out these things for a while. The first probably real incarnation of social communities was in the 6.0 timetable. It was completely rewritten, so if you've touched anything in the 5.5, 5.4, 5.6.1 days, it's all completely new from literally data storage all the way to the front-end tooling. And I'll talk about those two big hunks of functionality in a little bit. So some slideware for what I'll probably demo anyway. So this is our blogging platform. It's publish-side blogging. It's not the normal, hey, I'm on the author and I'm building a page kind of blogging. This is actually for your published users. So you can have people in your community, people that are browsing your site, build blogs. There's all sorts of cool stuff you can do with that. I'll go through some of that later. We also have publish-side calendars, event creation by publish users. So again, this is not on the author side. This is live happening on your publish-side website. Big difference from normal WCM use cases. We do notifications. This is a big one in FP4. Right now, the only thing we have is a web front end for notifications. Probably going forward, roadmap-y kind of feature stuff is email digests and things like that of things that have happened on the site. So I'll walk through what the web one looks like, which will probably be in FP4 in a little bit. And then the communities feature is kind of broken up into sort of two somewhat distinct areas. One being enablement communities and engagement communities. So engagement is like, hey, this is your website, you're engaging with your customers, and the other one being enablement, sort of like learning or focused sites. So you can think of like the front end to an LMS system. So one of the things that landed in this feature pack is going to be a catalog so people could browse all of your content. Again, publish side. Another large focus of this release was analytics integration. Before, you actually had to roll your own analytics integration, which was a huge pain. So now we're actually directly integrated into Adobe Analytics out of the box. You can use our wizards and just enable it, turn it right on, and it'll start feeding information in. I'll show some of this integration, but not all of it. There's a lot of pieces to the integration. There's a lot of stuff that we drag in. There's a lot of things we do on your behalf. I'm just going to touch on a little bit of it. We completely revamped how you manage members. So if you're familiar with the normal author-publisher environment, you generally don't want to sync all of your published users to your author, and you probably really don't want to sync your author-side users to your publisher. So, but the people that are managing your community and putting this functionality together are arguably probably running on your author. So you have this tension constantly where you're trying to do something on the author, but you really want to use the users that are on the publisher. So we've completely revamped the member management cockpit, so now you're actually doing that. So when you're on the author, you're actually looking through the author to the publisher to see those users, and you can modify them directly from the author. So that was a big ask. So that's it for at least the beginning of the slides. I have some more later that are more architecturally focused. Here is where I probably screw up the GoToMeeting thing with the 2 screens. Oh, maybe it handled that gracefully. That would be fun. So I'm going to jump to a demo now of some of these features that I just walked through. So so this is one of our forums, again running publish side. So who I'm signed in right now is basically, I'm actually not signed in. I could, but it wouldn't matter. This is just your average user that runs up to the site, right? So they can click onto things. We can look. We can see that this is you know, a forum. They're talking about a warranty issue with a particular product. We can see that this particular forum post was viewed 10 times. We have some other interesting components that were added. So we have trending content. So this is, again, plugged back into our analytics system. So Aaron McDonald is super active in visiting the site. So we're tracking where he's going. We know what he's looked at. We also know that he's contributing a lot. So you can see these 2 lists aren't necessarily equal. Because somebody that's contributing to your site might be more important or useful to you than somebody who's merely a visitor. We're also tracking the particular content. I haven't imported all of the data here. I just imported a tiny slice of it, which is why you only see 2 pieces down at the bottom here. This is the only one that I imported data for. So this gives us a lot of analytics plugin, and this is just turn it on. It's already pre-configured. You just need a report suite and obviously, you know, an Adobe Analytics account to make this integration work. And all of these components will start tracking all of that data for you. And then all of our components themselves are sending this tracking data. You don't have to do any of that either. We're doing that for you now. So what if I were to actually log into this site as somebody who's already registered? And in this case, I'm actually going to log in as our pal Weston here. And Weston is just a regular run-of-the-mill community member. He's registered with our site, but we haven't given him any special or interesting powers. So we can see, it's a little tiny, sorry. We can see down here that there is somebody. This is actually our friend Aaron, the guy who's the top contributor. And you can see that he has a couple interesting things underneath his avatar. What we're able to do now with the latest feature pack is do badging and scoring. So we can just hand somebody a badge and say, in this case, for instance, you're a moderator. So people want to know that you're a moderator. You should have some tagging on your avatar that you're a moderator. And then we can also do earned badges, so scoring, where you've done something on the site and we've configured this set of complicated rules that allow you to gain points, and then we can give you a badge. So we can actually show how this works if I have it all set up correctly. So you can see I can quickly create a forum topic here, and then is it 2? No, it's 1. So you can see now Weston has a bronze badge. So really easy, low-level, low-effort thresholds here for scoring. But this is, of course, just a demo system. These are extremely configurable. The scoring rules have a lot of flexibility already built into them. So that we can browse around a little bit further. We can go look at a blog. So this is our publish side blogging area. So you can see we can host content directly inside of here. The blogs themselves have commenting systems stuck to the bottom of them. So you can do rich text commenting. This is all a nice RTE that you can just drop in here. You can vote on comments, so voting can be added to pretty much anything in the system now. And then you can do some other interesting things with a forum, for instance. I can actually follow this. So now that I have following turned on, I can, I'll mark all these as red because they're not that interesting. I can go and, as a different user, create some content in that forum, and then Weston should be able to be notified that that actually happened. So let me just log into somebody else, sorry. So I'll head back over to this forum, and then I will write something super interesting. And now I should be able to go over to Weston, and you see, well, again, it's a little bit small, but you can see now Weston's been notified that something's happened. There's a small badge up here, so Weston knows how many things there are, and he can either click into the content, jump straight to it, or just mark it as red. So in this other window, I logged into somebody who's another interesting persona here on our site. I've logged in as actually our buddy Aaron. So Aaron is a moderator on the site. He's been given special powers to do things around on the site. So he can do things like go to a post and flag it, delete it, deny the post, so basically marking it as spam, if you will, straight out of the gate. There's another very interesting thing that we've added, again, as part of this feature pack. He can now move posts as well throughout the system. So he can go over to this post, and you can see, hopefully you can see, there's a little link here to say cut. He can scoop that post up, and now he can go over to our groups area because maybe he thinks this is a little bit more applicable to this hiking group that we have, and then he can go ahead and paste that in there, and you see the warranty issue thread and all its children. It didn't just take, obviously, the top thing. It took all the stuff underneath, too. That now has gotten moved over to this other forum. So another special thing that Aaron can do, you can see this page looks a little bit different to the very eagle-eyed observer. There's a new button here that says New Article. So again, I'm on the publish side. I haven't touched the author at all yet, right? So I can go in here and I can create a new blog post. So I can say new blog. I can go grab some content, throw it in here, and then this is actually a pretty a decently rich blogging platform now. You can embed all sorts of other media content, so YouTube links, a lot like Flickr. This is also highly configurable as well, so if the embed that's here doesn't support something, you can add plugins to this. What we can also do is we can also just go grab an image from my desktop here. I think this is hopefully a good one. And we can just drag and drop right into the text. So this is, you know, a much richer blogging platform than anything we had previously. You can also, we have tagging on a whole ton of the various components in the system. And you can even go and post on somebody else's behalf. So let's say you're the CEO's PR person and you want to post on behalf of the CEO, but you want it to look like it's the CEO, but you also want some auditing and tracking behind the scenes to know that CEO actually didn't post that, the head of PR did. So you can actually post on behalf of somebody else if you want as well. You can also schedule the post to go up at a specific time, or you can just go ahead and post it immediately. And so you can see this is posted by Allison Parker, even though I'm Aaron right now. So Allison doesn't even have rights to blog. So you can post even, you don't even want your CEO to talk, you can just take those rights away and let somebody else speak on his or her behalf. So let's see. Other stuff that I can talk about, let me see if I've hit everything. So also as Aaron, we have, well, I can show you the calendar. I guess that's sort of cool. So we have a nice little listing of calendar events here. And again, publish side, you can just grant this authority to your users. They can create this calendar event. They can attach images. They can, again, tag things. They can give it start and end times, like all the normal stuff that you just kind of expect from a calendar. The calendar events also, let me open one just so you can see what they actually look like. Calendar events, like pretty much everything in our system, have a commenting system underneath them so people can talk about the event before it's happening or thereafter. And then because I'm in as Aaron, I can do some other sort of powerful things that most users can't do. We can go look at our bulk moderation system. So in here, you can do all kinds of things. You can do text-based searches. You can search for just a specific site. You can search by content types if you only want to find forum posts or comments or blogs or whatever. You can see if they're what their status is. If somebody else has denied it, you can go undeny things. You can show if things are flagged. So the difference between flagging and regular moderation is flagging in the user community can just go through and flag things, and you can set a threshold. And then if a post meets that threshold, it automatically gets hidden. And then you can go use this to go look and see what those things are, right? So then you can have a real moderator come through. And again, this is all happening publish side. Haven't touched the author yet. So this is actually like really a nice little UI. You can go through and sort of bulk click things and select everything. And then you can deny them, delete them, lock the threads, blah, 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 all in here. So a whole bunch of stuff happening inside the moderation cockpit here. I guess one other sort of interesting thing that I didn't get to touch on is one of the other things to try and help drive people to content, which is oftentimes a problem on sites that have a lot of UGC, is people just kind of don't know what's happening. So we have activity stream components that allow you to throw, you can put on your site and say, I want to show the activities that are for this subset of the site, right? So it's not just going to give you everything in the universe. You can say, I'm really interested in what's happening in this forum because I want to put a little activity stream on my site in this area so I can drive people over to maybe that area of the site. So this is activity streams. This was somewhat recent. Maybe this was FP3. I don't remember. It's always hard for me to remember those things. So I will talk a little bit about the author, but only very quickly. So I'm going to flip over to the author side. Let me just jump to some links. Yes. Yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. That's more of a technical topic. So I talked a little bit about member management and how all of that stuff operates, and hopefully my system is still alive, which it is. Great. So what this is actually doing is this is our member area. We also have a groups section as well, so you can look at your groups that are on the system. Hopefully I typed in the right URL. And again, this is not managing the groups on the author. It's going through the author out to the publisher. So if you want to create a whole bunch of users in a particular community group, you want to add somebody to a site, you want to block a user or something like that, your author side folks can actually go ahead and do those tasks. They don't even need to log into the publisher. They can sit behind the firewall and manage the site just like they would be managing other things. So that was a big feature in FP4. No, we don't replicate things. So this is literally, we're actually calling out to the publisher and we're interrogating a specific secured endpoint on the publisher that allows us to find out what's going on with a specific class of user.
It's real time.
Yeah. There's no sync happening here. We're actually directly communicating with the publisher. So that's pretty much all I'm going to do demo-wise, unless somebody has a burning desire to know about something that I maybe missed. I covered all these different personas. Talked a little bit about. I can talk a little bit about this too. So one of the things that we do inside communities that's a little bit different maybe than other areas of AEM is we have wizards to actually build sites. So like if you want to spin up a ton of like little tiny sites, like Meetup's a great example where like each little group might want to have their own website with their own forum and their own calendar and their own whatever. Your authors can go ahead and do that. You can create a template. It's a blueprint using real WCM power. And you can go ahead and just start rolling out sites. So you can see these are the templates that come out of the box. But as a customer, you can actually create as many as you want. All of our sites use Bootstrap for skinning. So it's if you can create a Bootstrap theme, you can easily skin everything throughout the entire site. And then we have all of these settings, and there's a lot. Here's your moderation flagging threshold, group management. Here's your analytics configuration. I don't have it turned on anywhere right now. Enablement features, user management stuff. We also have machine translation as well as part of the communities. Yes?
Is there any like plugins that you download from third parties, or you have to build it your own?
I'm confused. I don't understand.
Plugins?
For what? Plugins?
WordPress has like multiple plugins that you have, like search engine or analytics?
Yeah, it's the AEM platform. It's not. So whatever you can do on AEM. So if you can write Java code, or you can find an independent software vendor that's selling something to run on top of AEM, you can absolutely run it here. So I can then go ahead and create a site, and this will squirt out a new site, but it's going to look like pretty much everything else that I have. So here's that new site now, and then you can, from here, just publish it out to your publishers. So this is sort of the normal WCM workflow, but just highly focused on somebody that maybe needs to go build a whole ton of tiny microsites and manage them very directly. So that's pretty much it for demo-y stuff. Okay, so more technology focused. So I'm going to now swing into definitely a more technical topic. Really two technical topics. Somebody asked about storage. I'm going to talk a little bit about our, this would work. Talk a little bit about the component framework that we built for 6.0 that allow us to build these components, right? So you can see there's somewhat of a difference between a normal WCM use case and a user-generated content social communities use case, right? The normal WCM use case is I have an author, I publish a site, it's relatively static, it changes tens of times a day, maybe, maybe hundreds if you're really doing a lot of publishes. We're hoping to take hundreds of pieces of UGC a minute, a second, really. Like that's the scale we want to get to. So the normal component model that's just very simple, like JSP, render something, doesn't really work too well for us because you're doing page refreshes, you're asking the server to build a lot of HTML on your behalf. Well, I have generally decently powered handsets and I have an extremely powerful laptop. We decided to take advantage of that. So, like I said, we try and focus on being very skinnable with all of our components, so they all respond to Bootstrap CSS. We use simple logicless templates. We do not write JSPs. We write handlebars templates. And the reason for this is that those can be rendered both server and client side. So we're doing a lot of dual rendering. This is great because it allows us to very quickly and easily modify a page while it's running, but also not lose any of the benefits of SEO. I know Google can parse SPAs, but you have to be really crazy about URL handling and all that stuff. Nope, we're not worrying about it. And also, obviously, what they're able to do is a bit of a black box. So we have a decently well-documented HTTP API. You can actually just interrogate the endpoints, and they'll tell you, hey, this is what I do. Here's a curl command that will create a comment for you. Go nuts. Server-side and client-side extensibility. The server-side stuff is obviously all written in Java. It has delineated extension points. So every one of our operations really will yield to you twice. So what I mean by an operation is when you go to create a comment, our operation will say, we'll call out to your code and say, is it okay for me to create this comment? And if your code tells us yes, we'll go ahead and create it. And then when we're done, we'll call back to you and say, hey, I just created this thing. Do you want to do anything about it? And then you're free to go ahead and do something. Also, while all this is happening, we're shooting off tons of OSGI events, so you're able to bind to those events as well. You don't necessarily have to sit inside the lifecycle of the HTTP post operation. And then client-side extensibility, everything on the client side is, again, is front-ended with handlebars, styled using Bootstrap CSS, and behind it is a set of backbone models and views. So you can even plug in at that layer to do all manner of thing on the front end. So this is basically the model of a GET request. So when SCF goes and does something, it sends a GET, an HTML, a piece of HTML from server, like path to a page / forum.html kind of a thing. On the server side, we fire up the handlebars engine. We go find the social component that represents the forum. We ask that thing to render itself. So it hands us back a map of attributes. We pass that map of attributes down into the handlebars engine. It binds that to the template, and voila, we get some HTML, some CSS, and then in the browser we create the SCF.js components, and that's actually what gets rendered back to the client. So that's really what's running inside the browser. So now somebody is looking at the forum and they say, okay, I want to make a new post because I have a question. They can go press the new question button, and then we send a post operation out. And these are generally XML HTTP requests. That goes to our endpoint, which are actually all Sling operations, if you're familiar with the stuff underneath Sling, which then goes and looks up the social operation service that is associated with that particular operation and resource type. And then it will go create that component and then ask the component to do something. This is where that operation extensions comes into play. So right before it asks it to go add a new forum post, it'll yield to your code. Your code throws an exception. We'll drop that request on the floor and send it and return an error code to the caller. If you want us to proceed, we'll go ahead and create that thing. That will then, of course, build us another social component. So you can see this sort of repetitive social component thing happening. And then we serialize that guy out to JSON, and then all those JavaScript object model that's running inside your browser knows how to take that JSON and stuff it back into the page somewhere. Because, again, we have logicless handlebars templates that are running on the server, that are running on the client. So I can render the same exact HTML in either place, which gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of how we write pages and how we write components. So just a little bit like, which hopefully summarizes most of what I just said. Yes. So this is mostly just a synopsis of what I just went through in terms of what you can do, what you can't do. But if you're just skinning it, you only need to change CSS. If you're just changing the look and feel, you can probably get away with just changing the handlebars template and or the CSS. If you need to change the look and feel in the UX, like, oh, I don't want the composer to toggle open. I want it to be open already when somebody lands on the page. You might need to override our JavaScript objects, but they're all there. They're just straight up JavaScript, bootstrap views and models. It's not rocket science. And then you can extend everything on the server side as well. You can even register your own social components. So if you want to have a super special forum that does something else, you can register a new super special forum component that yields most of its work back to our component, but then does something whatever super special that you want to do is. So changing gears to sort of the other thing that we put a lot of work in the sort of 6.0, 6.1 time frame is, so we have this whole component model now that allows us to do a lot of both client and server-side rendering. And the other big thing that we think we tried to push to solve is just pure scalability on the publish side. So we're taking in a lot of data. We're writing a lot of stuff into JCR. So we really want, number one, we want publish farms because they have much more high availability. Number two, most of our customers prefer publish farms because they have high availability. So we sort of knew that we needed to solve this problem in a publish farm way. And we just don't think replicating UGC is good enough. We tried everything to get this to work. We did mesh replication across a set of publishers. We did reverse replication back to the author. We did reverse replication without unpacking the Durbo and pushing it back to the publishers. There's like every single thing you could possibly imagine from a technical engineering AEM perspective we tried, and it just was never going to be significantly fast enough. So we need this thing to be really responsive. We need when somebody creates a comment that it feels snappy, that they get their page updated immediately. Everybody expects everything to work like Facebook. So it doesn't matter that your company can't afford Facebook engineering. It's got to feel that way. It's got to look that way, and it needs to be able to scale with your community. So fast and consistent was something that was hugely important to us, obviously. And we wanted something that looked like a cluster so that when you're on publish A and you post a comment, if your next request goes to publish B, you better make sure you still see it, right? So you also need to be consistent. So there's the idea of fast and consistent, two different things, but they're inexorably linked in our mind. So what we ended up building was what we call the common store for UGC. You can configure this really in 3 ways right now, and you probably can't see that, but I'll talk about it. So you can configure it to store the data in JCR. You can configure it to store it in a Mongo Solr cluster that you manage yourself, or you can say, Adobe, it's your problem, and you can store it in our cloud. So you can do one of these 3 options. So what these actually look like in practice is, again, I have a farm of AEM publishers. Each one of the publishers is storing their data in a tar persistence layer. But what we can do is we can slice off a chunk of the repository and send it to our cloud. So we basically sit on top of an abstraction inside the Sling system, inside Sling, that allows us to take those requests and shuttle them elsewhere. So this is one example where you're basically paying for us to manage all of this stuff. So we have data centers all over the world that allow you to have at least halfway decent latency out to wherever your publishers are located. And one of the nice things about this setup is that you can see here the publishers and the author are all looking at the same data. So that consistency is maintained even across from the publish barrier to the author barrier as well, not just between publishers. So because we only have a single point of truth in that case. Yes?
So the previous one, the published servers, let's say this looks like hybrid cloud. They're on-prem client, and then the persistence layer is the Adobe cloud.
Yep, exactly. You can call it a hybrid cloud, sure. So then, if you don't want to pay Adobe to host things for you, maybe you don't like your data residing in the United States, maybe you have things that you view too sensitive to put in a multi-tenant environment, fine, no skin off our nose. We have another solution that you can stand up a Solar and MongoDB instance in your data center, and then you can send your data right there. So this, again, is extremely scalable and very, very performant and reduces the latency call out to the Adobe Cloud. Then we have a third option, which is a JCR-based option. So if you don't want to do any of those other options for whatever reason, we do support a MongoDB persistence layer in JCR, but you then do have to cluster your publishers. So this is sort of the give and take between the JCR API and what we built inside the social resource provider. So I already talked about this, really. So self-registration, so one of the things we also worked on for the 6.1 timetable is when you are in a published farm, some of the things that can be difficult is actually syncing users from publish A to publish B to publish C. So we work very closely with Sling to actually get a fully published side distribution of users working. So when you register on publisher A, the publishers will sync just your user around so that you are replicated across the whole entire farm. And this comes out of the box. One of the other things that we worked on for the 6.1, 6.2 timetable is dispatcher caching for UGC, which is a whole nother talk that I could give. So I'll probably kind of gloss over this because we're getting close to 8 o'clock. And then these are actually some of our numbers from the 6.1 timetable. We're still building our numbers for 6.2. So like I said, in the 5.6 world, you were getting like 5 transactions a second. It was really, really, really slow. It was not scalable. By doing these 2 tasks of building both the social component framework and the social resource provider, we're able to see easily a 10 times improvement in transaction rate per instance, and it was actually horizontally scalable across those instances. The 5.6.1 was not even horizontally scalable. It was 5 transactions per second in 2 nodes. So if you added nodes, it didn't really buy you anything. So now we're much more horizontally scalable than we were before. Yeah, we do. All that testing is all the same exact hardware. It's that's why we're still collecting the 6.2 numbers, because we have to get that hardware back from the longevity guys. So they're doing longevity testing on that hardware right now. So we loaned it to them and haven't gotten it back yet. So that's why we're still collecting numbers for 6.2. So that's pretty much the whirlwind tour of social communities on top of AEM 6.1 FP4, and of course a lot of this will be landing in 6.2 as well. So that is it from me. No, that was a lot. So does anybody have any questions? Mm. Sure. So. Yeah, sure. I ask this question all the time, and I say, good books. We can talk about what are some of the features like this? Yeah. So just to repeat the question, if there's anybody still on the phone, I can't tell. The question was, well, why would I use this when I can just go use WordPress? A perfectly valid question. WordPress has its own support costs associated with it. WordPress is not directly integrated. You can do the work, of course. You can make the effort to build analytics in. You can make the effort to link it to your DAM. You can make the effort to link it to your users, you can do all of this synchronization, you can do all of this work, absolutely. You can probably make the integration look good, but it'll never be part of the integrated AEM solution where you have easy access to the digital asset management system. So if you want to have UGC things be uploaded and processed by DAM, you can build that in if that's what you want.
So the DAM within AEM is just for that's for the archive, right? So how can users access the DAM that comes with AEM?
So there's no direct connection right now between those two things, but in terms of like what Communities is capable of doing, but there's no reason why you couldn't use that power if that's what you chose to do. So you can leverage all of those assets as well because they're obviously also on your publisher if you're using them anywhere on your site. You don't have to sync them around. You don't have to worry about hosting them in a separate content area or on a separate domain to be able to link to them from WordPress. It's a question of, do you want to build your own integration to something like WordPress that obviously has a great authoring experience, and then do you want to take on the continuing effort of handling that integration yourself, or would you rather have Adobe, who builds the AEM platform, do it on your behalf? I mean, that's basically the coin toss there.
And just to answer my own question, I think what I was asking is that doing the authors be powered to moderate
but you could, there's like WordPress plugins to do that kind of stuff too. But like, does WordPress have forums? Does WordPress have Q&A, voting, comment streams? I mean, it does have some of these things, but like, you're taking off-the-shelf plugin A, off-the-shelf to plugin B, and kind of hoping they work well together and don't blow up the universe. Whereas this is a much more holistic solution. You say, okay, you're going to build a community. You're going to build something that isn't just a blog. You're going to build something that is a standalone, almost a standalone site that is highly focused at a particular set of your user community. And it's just, yeah, you can do all of that with WordPress, but you're going to be writing a lot of code and you're going to be maintaining a lot of integration points. And
I have a use case where we have a client which has 2,000 users, and then you can integrate to the site to do it, but then they can ask questions and such. This would be, and they're all like,
yep.
So
yeah, I didn't even show the Q&A. I could show the Q&A component, or I could show it to you later. But yeah, it's basically a forum where the person who wrote the initial question can choose an answer. That answer gets kind of promoted to the top. You can play with the UX as much as you want. People can vote on. It's like Stack Overflow.
Can you cite to the LDAP?
It's AEM, so of course, it's AEM. That's what you get really for saying, well, I'm going to walk away from something that's cheap and inexpensive out of the gate, assuming that you're going to bet on a company that already supports you probably for a multi-million-dollar sale already, and you're going to use some more of the components that you got and leverage those. But yeah, because it's LDAP. Like, if you've already hooked it up to AEM, it already works. So. I don't have numbers offhand right now, to be really honest, and also. I mean, 2 or 3 million people commenting all at once? No, I don't think we scale that large. No, but that's gigantic. That's like social network size. That's not 2 million registered users, of which 5% are commenting. That's 2 million people commenting all at the same time. No. Yeah.
And the second question, in terms of license, if, for example, client will buy a community without sites, is it possible?
I'm like the worst person to answer this question. I'm just an engineer. I'm not like a sales guy at all. Like literally, I write Java code and JavaScript all day. But I will guess, and I think yes.
What level of authoring?
So you still get the whole touch authoring experience. And again, let's assume for a second that you can indeed buy it as its own standalone SKU. And I'm not 100% sure you can. But if you can, you get like touch authoring and things like that, but you probably don't get access to like you'd only be able to probably generate sites using like our wizards and things. So like, but I'm like the worst guy to ask. If you want to give me your contact information, I can get you a human that can actually answer that question. It's just not me. I'm sorry.
Kind of a question. You did say it does scale linearly, correct? So to me, as long as you have enough servers.
Yeah, but you also have to scale your data infrastructure linearly as well, right? So like if you're running, so if you wanted a super duper high performance snappy site, you'd probably want to go with your own Mongo and Solr locally, right? Because if you're going to really be driving that much traffic, you probably don't want the latency to hop over to our cloud. So you need to put a lot of gear behind that to make that go. I mean, a million transactions a second is a gigantic amount.
How is that different from the Oak Mongo store? Or is it?
It's completely different. So Oak implements JCR. We are actually riding on top of only Sling's resource abstraction. So all of our components, if you're ever to look at what we do, or if you get a resource from the social resource provider, it will adapt to a resource, but it is not a node. It is not a JCR node. It is only a resource. So by removing some of the complexity of the JCR API, we're able to shunt data over a lot quicker, and we're able to do some things that you're not allowed to do in JCR by simply abstracting at the Sling layer as opposed to the JCR layer. So Oak has different persistence managers. This is above Oak. So Oak doesn't even see this. So like when you're writing this data, if you're using the Mongo social resource provider or the Adobe social resource provider, like if you go into CRXDE, like you don't even see the nodes. They're like not putting any load under JCR infrastructure at all. So they're all going elsewhere.
Use the JCR back. There is a JCR.
Yeah, and that will actually absolutely. And if you're using Oak to then persist to Mongo, it'll use Oak to persist to Mongo. But that's just from our perspective, it's just JCR. Whatever you do with JCR's persistence mechanism it doesn't matter to me as the caller of JCR. Yeah, there's trying to think of which ones are out of the box. I think our Twitter, Facebook, and is it Instagram? I don't remember. There's another one. Yeah, you can find. There's docs on all that stuff. Yeah.
Does communities replace the existing components or?
No, I mean if you look at like the 55561 generation, yes, it does replace a constellation of components that are there, but it's pretty much like a one-to-one swap. So like if you had the comments component, there's a comments component, there's a forum component, except we've added 10 more or something like that in the introducing time. Yes. Uh-huh.
So the AEM is still, and how do they just manipulate in the same area that it used
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, like if I were to, I don't know if I have it configured on this site, so this is always one of these fun risks. I log out. I log in. I'm not sure I have. Oh, so yeah, log in to Twitter, Facebook. I didn't even know that was there. So this should work. So if I were to go find me now, because this is, I think what you're really asking is, did I just create a user actually in JCR? And the answer to that question is yes. So, and then the follow-on question is, well, what's so special about that? Oh, do we anonymize all this stuff? So that's me. So then what we've built along with Sling, so this was a very collaborative effort with some of the other folks outside the communities team, is what will happen now with this, if I was in a publish farm and you correctly configured user distribution, this little node would get flushed actually back to the author, wouldn't get unpacked, and then it would get forward replicated out to all of the other publishers. And then you would have this user existed on all your publishers. And I think the sync time is like 10 or 30 seconds. I forget. I'm probably mixing up which cache is which and which flush rate is which, but something on the order of seconds, not minutes or days. So then obviously if you didn't have sticky sessions on or anything, this person could log out of this publish instance, log into another one, and they'd still be there, which is helpful. So does that answer your question? Oh yeah, so if I looked at the user admin, I'd see this person too. Yeah, this person's in here as well. But like if I were to go on the author, for instance, so there's me, right? But if I go on the author, I won't see them, right? Because you shouldn't be syncing your published users back to your author. So only created on the publish side.
They're stored in the JCR.
They are absolutely stored in JCR, yes.
So what was the rationale behind that? The rest of the content was offloaded to this Sling.
Because the number of users that you create will be significantly lower than the amount of user-generated content you're generating, right? You have one user is generating 10 posts, but that's only one user, right? So you're never going to have as many users flying around through Sling distribution as you would having actual like community content being created. So that's why. Also, manipulating the entire authorization layer off into a different Sling thing when authorization and authentication is very inexorably tied to JCR would be a Herculean effort. So that's the other reason why. It's just fundamentally significantly more of a difficult problem. And we haven't had any customer walk up to us and say, you know what's really way too slow? When my users log in, or like when I create a new user. I have so many users piling in that it just destroys my system. We didn't find that. We found people that were running like major sporting events that were like having big peaks of traffic, not millions, but big peaks of traffic that were like, I just torched my publish and my author instances with all the reverse replication that was happening. Also, what's happening here with Sling distribution isn't actually reverse replication. I'm just sort of glazing over some of the details a little bit. But it is going through your author, but it isn't actually reverse replicated. So that was a little bit of a lie. It's using Sling distribution, which is not replication. But now we're getting into the weeds.
So a lot of UGC, there's usually it's kind of event-driven. So there might be something like elections coming up or things like that. You know, is there a capacity for it to be like? Can you have the publish capacity and everything be? Is there a way to make it easier for it to be like on-demand, elastic, to handle like a temporary amount?
So I mean, the good thing with paying us to deal with that and sending your data to the Adobe Social Cloud is, well, then that's our problem. And you know, we have good capacity and good scalability in our data centers, so we're cognizant of that. If you want to run your own Mongo and Solr, though, you're a little bit on your own in terms of that. There's not really anything that's part of the product right now that helps with like elastic scaling in AWS or anything like that. Managed services can help you do things like that. So there's Adobe Managed Services, which will host your AEMs on your behalf, and they can help with that to make it easier. But there's like no like automatic scaling right now that I'm aware of. Maybe somebody's working on it, but I don't know.
Yeah, but from operational perspective, we need to do this like backup for this separate storage.
Yeah, of course. Like you're managing another piece of infrastructure. If you want to own it, you have to own it. So like you have to be signing up to sort of deal with that.
Any special operations, or do you like simple backup?
Yeah, it's just like we don't have. If you were to go into our Mongo and Solr, it wouldn't look anything like the complexity that Oak writes into the MongoDB persistence layer. It's like document. I mean, it is very, very simple and straightforward. So from a management perspective, it makes it much easier. So yeah, if you had like a Mongo replica set and you were snapshotting one of the replicas, that would be, the way to do it.
About Adobe Cloud. If we use your Adobe Cloud, then why not we are using that?
Sorry, we're using the what?
So if we use the Adobe Cloud, then we don't need that.
No, it's two completely. What you're delivering via your. So the question was, is if you use the Adobe Social Cloud, can you get rid of something like Akamai? And the answer to that question is absolutely not. Like Akamai is about, a CDN for edge delivered assets, probably for your main authoring experience. This is about storing the UGC somewhere where you don't have to worry about it. So one is what your user is going to fetch and what your user is getting, and the other one is where we're going to go and put the data on your behalf as a back-end data store. So those are two completely orthogonal concepts.
You could use them together.
Yeah, you can use them together. They have nothing to do with each other, really. So I think we are done. I'll hang out for a little bit and take questions, and then also, obviously, in the meetup, you can get in touch with me through the website, and I will try and direct you to. If I don't know what the answer is, I'll try and find a human that will answer it for you.
One last question. Do you have live customers in companies?
Not nearly as many as WCM, that's for sure. Yeah, we have live customers. We can do, if you have a customer that's feeling apprehensive, we can do meetings with other customers that have gone live.
Is there any particular website that you find them? Or is that...
I never know who I'm allowed to talk about, so if you want referenceable customers, just hit me with an email and I'll get you in touch with the referenceable list. I just. Yo.